Hi, I'm your host, Megan Neely, and welcome back to day 3 of the Be Your Own Badass Boss virtual retreat, where we're sharing 21 secrets to clarity, confidence, and the courage you need to get out of overwhelm and say yes to your big vision. And if you haven't yet checked out the link to your free ticket for the live event, we'll be gathering November 4th, 5th, and 6th in the beautiful Monterey Peninsula for the Be Your Own Badass Boss live retreat. And there are still a few tickets available. So make sure you grab your ticket and really get to take this community that you're feeling right now virtually into reality. Keep these connections going. And as we've been talking about already today, really dropping into what your core message is, what are your gifts to give. And I am joined right now with one of my favorite people in Santa Cruz, Brie Wieselman. She works with busy, inspired women leaders and entrepreneurs to optimize their health when they have gotten burned out so that they can have more powerful impact in the world and take full pleasure in their successes. She focuses on reprogramming hormones, digestion, and detoxification systems by working with functional medicine and nutrition. For the past 4 years, she has worked with hundreds of clients living anywhere from Dubai to Iceland, from Wall Street to Mozambique, empowering them with a personalized map for understanding and transforming their health. And besides women's health, she also specializes in helping people with digestive challenges. And Brie's philosophy is that our physical health is the platform for our emotional, spiritual, and professional growth and success. I'm so excited to have you here with us.
Yay, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, and thank you for that warm introduction. You're also one of my favorite people and most inspiring people in Santa Cruz. So likewise, thanks for having me.
Thank you. And I just wanted to share a little bit more personally that Brie is someone that I've gotten to work with to get support in my own journey. And I know I'm going to be asking Brie some questions about what she's found most transformative and helpful on her journey of entrepreneurial path. And I know that for me, one of those game-changing things was getting the support for the digestive challenges I was having that I didn't even know that I had, and getting support around sleeping well and managing energy. So I had the energy to sustain to even do something like this, which is months of work that goes on behind the scenes to create a virtual retreat that you see just for a few days. And I would never have been able to do this before working with Brie because I didn't have the energy to do it. So thank you for all that you've given me and that I get to give back to others because I did that core foundational work with you.
My pleasure. Well, hey, that's the juice. That's the rewarding part of my work. Now you're out there helping so many people. So
yeah. And so for women out there who are at the beginning stages of their business and they're feeling like maybe this is not for them because they're not really sleeping well or they're not feeling like they're in their optimal health. I know that's the point that I got to where I started to think, oh, this isn't how I want to be feeling. I want to have more energy. I want to feel inspired and excited every day to wake up. I must be doing something wrong. And I thought it was with my mission or my vision and who I was working with. And I would change it around and change my niche or refocus. And that just wasn't working. The problem stayed there. So for women who may be feeling something like that, I'm wondering if you could start us off with what
absolutely.
to look for.
Absolutely. Well, I want to say that I get that firsthand. Like I've been there. And so this is why this is a passion for me. So when you decide to create your vision and identify your vision, you have that internal knowing that you're supposed to go out and build a business on your own. There's that spark that happens within us, and then there's a vision, and that's the inspiration, and then we have to sustain that. And so like there's a reason that the term launch is a launch. Like if you think about launching a rocket, it takes a huge amount of kinetic energy to like get that baby off the ground and out into space, right? And so that's what we're trying to do. And it is virtually impossible to stay in that kind of positive, inspired place that we need to continue to nourish in ourselves to make that happen, to manifest our vision, if you're just, having things that are stealing from what I call your energy bank account. Essentially, if you're not feeling well, it just distracts you to no end. So it's hard to get where we're going. When I was first starting my practice, it looked different than it does now. My business looked different. But starting any business, the process is similar. And I had been going through a huge amount of stress prior to that, getting my master's degree while working full time, also for myself, and a number of other things that had happened in my life, out of my control, just circumstance. I was really stressed out. My hormones were all out of whack. My cycle was really irregular. My skin was all broken out. I had an extra, 5-10 pounds that were just not budging no matter what I did. And I couldn't sleep. That was the biggest problem, was my sleep. I was sleeping 3 or 4 hours a night and managing to keep this all together, barely. And I definitely didn't feel like I was, I felt just barely competent. It was like, okay, I got this. But it was like struggling to keep my head above water. And when I started my business, it kind of felt like that. It didn't thrive or flourish because in truth, as much as my heart was in it and I had this passion, it was buried under so many layers of just not enough energy, not enough resource to put into it. And so it wasn't until, for me, it was really key to solve what was going on for me there and to really look at that and to get support and to make those shifts. And when my health got back on track and when I was sleeping and I just started to bank that energy, all of a sudden it was like, whoa, I had so much more to put into my business and so much more clarity. And it happened with so much more ease. That was the thing. It wasn't that I was doing more. It was just doing more with less energy. So it made the night and day difference. So I know how that feels. I've been there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for women who are listening who feel like, yes, they're just keeping their head above water and struggling and in any of those areas, what would you say are some of the first steps they can take to start to shift that?
Okay. Well, so my little tagline that I like to tell my clients is that, the body is the B in the word business. Our bodies are our best business partner if we allow them to be. So of course, that perspective from my perspective is that the first thing we have to do in business is to do everything we can to nourish and protect and raise and cultivate how much energy we have. And so you have to be a little bit selfish to do that because it requires putting attention into taking care of our physical. So this is things like, how is my sleep? A lot of women, what I see is like the issues that they talk about are like, they're not sleeping or not sleeping well enough. They're tired. So there's just that level of things. But then there's other women who it's hormonal issues, like their PMS is robbing them of 1 to 2 weeks a month or more of feeling stable enough, feeling grounded enough to be productive. And other women, it's, like yourself, it was like some digestive things that were just kind of a hole in the bucket, like a leak, and oftentimes it's not that hard. We can kind of get those things back on track. So I would say that my main advice is to, if you know that you have those things going on and you maybe haven't looked at them directly, like clean that up, handle it, do anything you can to deal with whatever is stealing from your total amount of energy. And often it's about getting help to do that. So sometimes it's about carving out time in your schedule. Like, I schedule sleep now, like it's an appointment with a colleague, like it's an appointment for myself.
That's great.
I do not do anything unless I have, and even if I don't necessarily, I sleep really well now, but let's say there's a night where I'm really excited about something having the next day. It takes me a little to fall asleep. Maybe I'm not, asleep the entire 8 hours, but I am in bed for that 8 hours and maybe I'm meditating or whatever it is I'm doing, it's relaxing. That is like a deal breaker for me if that doesn't happen. So I'm very selfish about that. I schedule that in. So that's a great starting place for people. And then the other thing is to move. Now, this doesn't mean we all have to become triathletes. It just means like we have to move our body because what we don't move stagnates. Yeah. And stagnant energy has no place as a business owner. We have to keep everything in motion. I get some of my best ideas and inspirations like on a walk with a girlfriend or in a dance class. I just got back from a dance class an hour ago and I was like, yeah, woo, life's good. Like I got this. I'm so excited to go do this work at home. And so whenever that is for you, it's really about finding, what gives you joy and what feels good in your body. So I would say move, sleep, and feed yourself.
Mm.
A pet peeve of mine is when people do not eat breakfast. So this would be one way. There's a lot of things to talk about under the concept of feed yourself. But the one most important point that I would say that I tell all my clients is eat something within an hour of waking up.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's kind of like, okay, we're in Santa Cruz. If we decide that you and I are going to go shopping in San Francisco and we get in the car and put no gas in the tank,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be a rough start to that day, an even rougher afternoon. So, it's a very simple principle, but easy to kind of like skip over and just get on with the rest of your day. But I would say, eat something, usually something that has a little protein and some good quality fats, a little carbohydrate in there, and you're going to be well on your way to success just from that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the pieces that I heard you say that I just want to highlight is you said you're really selfish about your sleep schedule.
I am.
And selfish is one of those words that gets like tossed towards women, I think in particular, like, oh, you're being selfish if you want that or if you ask for that. And so I am definitely an advocate for healthy selfishness as well. And I would love for you to talk about how selfish you have been, how selfish have you been required to become to be at the level you're in with your business? Like what kind of things?
That is a great question. Oh my gosh, girl, we could talk about that for like hours, but I love talking about that actually because it's a continual lesson. It's a refining process. So I love the concept of healthy selfish too. Yeah, selfish gets a bad rep, and I think we have a hard time sometimes if we're cultured to see it that way. No one wants to own that. But there's a way of being selfish where it's really allowing you to give to the world in a bigger way. So like an example of this is when I'm working with entrepreneurs who are moms, when they hire somebody to help with their childcare so that they can carve out some time to then build their business, I encourage them to add in even just a half hour of me time in that so that they're doing something, whether it's like a yoga video or getting to a class or just going and meditating and having a moment of quiet. Those are the things that are like, it doesn't have to be a lot, but it has to be, it has to be there. The ways that we nourish ourselves just allow us to be more present for however it is we serve, and also to reap the benefits, to enjoy the successes, and not just the successes, but to enjoy the process of being in business. So, I find that for me, what that's looked like is sleep was one of them. Being diligent about I need to eat now. So, kind of prioritizing that, and people who love me and know me and hang out with me know that, I'm not going to hang out for 8 hours and not stop for lunch. Also, to some extent, it's been about learning to say no. I'm presented, as we all are, with so many opportunities to either socialize or, a lot of just things that can look real shiny. And I can't say yes to all of them as much as I would like to, because I just need the time and the focus and to be centered when I come to my work. And that's a priority for me. So I've had to, be selective and say yes fully to the things that I really want to do. And then to gracefully bow out or say next time, please keep me, posted about some things that I just didn't have space for on my plate when I really got honest with myself. There's one more thing too, and this is a little bit of an edgy one, but I would say that I had to do, and this is, so one of the things I do with people is I talk about the role that toxins play in our health. And a lot of that looks like from a physical standpoint. So those toxins can come from in the environment, things we're exposed to, or food we eat, sometimes even from within the body. But in the context of being selfish, a lot of times our places for maybe some of our relationships or some of the people or energies that are around us maybe are a little bit toxic. And as I got further and further committed to my well-being path, my growth path as an entrepreneur, I really had to, kindly and lovingly let some of those things go. So I just didn't have room for those in my life. And I think most of the entrepreneurs that I know have found the same to be true for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. Because what I hear, especially with new clients and people who are just kind of at the start of the path, is that they start to notice people naturally falling away. And there can be a grasping and discomfort of that. Like, oh, but that's someone that was a close friend for years. Or it can be also partners and family members, and they're usually in the beginning trying to keep it all the same. And so what I hear from you is that you haven't kept it all the same, and you're not trying to, but you're recognizing what's nourishing on all levels. So not just about what you put in your body, but what you're surrounded with.
Yeah, absolutely. People. Well put. What you're just you here, I would say that that's absolutely true. I don't know about it directly, but I've heard that a lot from all of my, peers and colleagues and sisters who are also entrepreneurs. Is, when you choose this path, you're always walking it alone to some extent, and you also are walking it with team and support, as long as you allow that in. But the one thing that is going to happen is that it has this effect of changing things for sure in your life and influencing some of your relationships and the things you have time and space for. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I also just noticed the environment that you're in right now too. So could you speak to that you're outside?
I wanted to welcome everybody. I thought it was appropriate, that we do this in my office. So one of the reasons I became, my own badass boss is because my most valuable thing is my freedom, my time and my freedom. So for a lot of people, the most valuable thing is maybe money or a feeling of acknowledgement. There's all kinds of reasons why we desire to be our own boss. And for me, it's about time and freedom. And what freedom looks like for me is being able to set my own schedule, being able to choose who I want to work with. And the more and more along the path of entrepreneurism that we get, we realize that we really do choose who we work with. And choosing where I work. So because I do have a clinic here in town, but I primarily work with people online, and that allows me the freedom to be anywhere I want. So I'm often visiting family and friends in Portland or on the East Coast. I'm going to New York next week. And sometimes I'm abroad traveling, and as long as I have a stable internet connection, I can, and my VAs and my office manager, then I got this covered. So here we are in my backyard in Santa Cruz, California. It's sunny and gorgeous and maybe heading towards 80 degrees. And very often you will see me out here with my headphones, my computer, sometimes in a bathing suit, sometimes I'm in my workout clothes. And this is how I work with my clients.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes, more of that.
Yeah. And you kind of touched on it already, but just wanted to see if there was any more to this, because I've been asking all the speakers, what does being a badass boss mean to you? And you spoke to the freedom. Is there anything else that?
Yeah. For me, there was no other choice. So so really it's about that freedom for me. Like when I say, what is being a badass boss about? It's the freedom. But it's also that, there's just something about me and the way that I was designed. And I think maybe this is similar for you, where it's just this knowing of like, no, I have this thing I got to do. Like, and there were moments where the exact what it wasn't necessarily crystal clear, but it was this feeling of like, I have this way that I'm supposed to like, give to the world. And I can't waste my time doing this other thing that's fitting into this template that someone else wants me to. I mean, I am happy to, if someone gives me a task, help them out, like at an event or whatever. But in terms of the long run and like day to day, what I'm doing with my life, I knew that wasn't for me. And so it's listening to that inner calling and following it and being true to it and having integrity with knowing that you have a purpose. And if you're not out there moving towards it, you're, not only cheating yourself of that experience, but also all the people in the world that you're here to serve and support. You know, and you get to have a lot of fun.
Yes. Yeah. And I know I just want to highlight one of those pieces you said, that it wasn't always totally clear to you. Right. And it's not always totally clear, but you had this sense of still moving towards it. And I imagine that most of the women listening have that feeling, whatever stage they're in, of like, well, maybe it's not 100% clear yet. And for many of us, that can hold us back. And so I hear that a lot, unfortunately, from clients saying, well, I just have to wait until it's all perfect to present and to show, and then I'm going to have it figured out. And maybe it'll be 6 months or a year, or a few years go by and it's still not quite perfect. And so how have you, I know you're really masterful at taking action and just getting yourself, your offerings out there. And so what could you share about that? How to take action when you actually don't know what the next step is?
Oh man. Yeah. And I have those days. Trust me. I still have them, you know, at whatever level you're at, you still have those days. Okay. So there's two really critical things. One is to ask yourself what you do know. Like, what does it feel like? What does it look like? What does it smell like? What does it sound like? Like one itty bitty little thing that you do know. And then you take one little step, you know, and maybe that step that day is like, I'm going to send an email to such and such, or, you know, it could be that small. But taking the one first little step, it's kind of like when you're facing a blank page, and the minute you write like one thing, it's like, okay, I have something to build off of. Same thing, you know, same thing is like, what are the things I do know? So that's number one. Number two is, one of the best things I ever did was to ask for the reflection of people who knew me from a number of different environments. But I sent out an email at one point under the impetus of a coach I was working with, that asked people, you know, things like, what am I doing when you see me at my brightest or at my most happy? What are the things that I offer to you that are of value to you? You know, and some of these were friends, they might've been colleagues, clients, you know, whatever, just people who knew me. And it's amazing how much feedback you get that is very consistent. And it really shows you like how you show up in the world. And what I think is important for entrepreneurs or people who are aspiring entrepreneurs to know is that it's good to really get clear about who you are and what you do that is unique to you. And it's not necessarily about a skill set we've learned. So there's the what we do. So for example, I support people mainly in health. And in the past, it's looked like acupuncture and, you know, a number of other things. But to get really clear about the how we do it, because how we do one thing is how we do everything. And so it's common in people's lives that they're going to have a number of different careers that look like they're doing different jobs. But it's the what you bring to that is your value. And that's the same. You know, that's the same and grows. So when you feel a little bit lost and you're not sure about what it's going to look like, at least identify what are the things that are the how you serve in the world naturally. Like, how do you show up? And it can help to get reflection from people, I think, because sometimes it'll trigger a thought. And the last piece is just to get support. So one thing I've learned, ask me how I know, is that the most successful people ask for the most support. And the one thing I know about, I can speak at least for myself, but I've seen this in my other co-entrepreneurs, is that we tend to be can-do girls, you know, Rosie the Riveter, like, I got this. Everything's figure outable. And that is such an amazing skill to have. And it is a double-edged sword, because if you do that too often, what you wind up doing is running in circles, trying to do everything, wearing the 17 hats. And I wish that I had known this when I was starting off, but the most successful people get the most help. They get the most support. So, you know, ask yourself, who is my team? It doesn't matter if you've been a business owner for 10 or 20 years, or if you're just starting out and you don't even have the concrete idea of what you're doing, but who's my team? And so at different levels, that might be your community, like your sisters, you know, your friends. It can also be assistants that you hire, virtual assistants or in-person assistants. It could be coaches that are rooting for you and helping you take steps forward. It can be healthcare support. There's so many ways. It can be your partner, your lover. So whatever it is, you've got to figure out who your team is. And most of us need more team members than we think we need earlier than we think we need them. So like, get that help on the get-go. And that allows you to figure out what you do best. Like, what's the essence of what you do best? And anything that is not absolutely necessary that you're doing it, as soon as you can hand it off to others as much as possible. And that allows you to get out of the way of your creative source and just go forward.
Yes. So key. All three of those. So important. And I just want to highlight that second piece of coming together, well, both. I mean, this piece you're saying about coming together with your tribe and your community, and then also getting the clear reflection from them and those around you on what it is that's yours to do, and you're already doing it, but it may be so close to your skin that you don't recognize.
Exactly.
Our whole focus for the entire day one of the live retreat. So for those listening that feel like you really aren't sure what that is, that's what we're going to be doing. So I love that you brought that in.
Oh man, that's priceless. I want to go.
Yeah.
There's no end to that. You have to keep doing it,
Yeah.
Cool.
And I know, I talked about the digestive piece as one of the places that you were supporting me with, but the other one was adrenal fatigue. And recognizing that I had it, first of all, with you. And then what is that? And it's something I feel like maybe it's only because I'm working with it myself now, but I feel like I hear it everywhere and people are talking about it all the time. And then not necessarily talking about what it is. And if it's something like, it seems like an epidemic situation that pretty much, everybody has some level of that. So I would love for you to just talk a little bit about that. If people are listening and feeling like, well, maybe do I have that?
Oh yeah. Gosh, one of my favorite topics. So you're right. It is an epidemic. And the reason it's an epidemic is because our bodies, as brilliantly as they're designed, are not designed for today's world in the way that we've created it. And so we're living, and this is a little bit of a, just a common thing you'll hear, but we're living out of sync with our nature in some ways. And there's a little about that, and is that we can make it more sustainable. But what happens is that adrenal fatigue is actually a brain problem. That's kind of a weird concept, but in most cases, there's nothing wrong with someone's adrenal glands. And what the adrenals are is they're like, kind of like, I think of them like the little espresso machines that sit on top of your kidneys. They're teeny little glands. And they secrete a various amount of different hormones, kind of cortisol being one of the main ones that is talked about a lot, and other kinds of hormones as well. And so these hormones regulate our energy metabolism. They also help to regulate how we can handle inflammation. Things like if we are in a state where we will desperately hold on to fat or burn fat, they play a role in the balance of our sex hormones, our reproductive hormones like estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. So they impact, and there's so much more that they do, but that's another talk for another day. So what this feels like in people's bodies when they're off is it can feel like fatigue. That's an obvious one. Sometimes it can masquerade as anxiety and depression or brain fog. Can also contribute to the development of digestive issues downstream, or to environmental reactivity downstream as it affects other systems in the body, or a reluctance of your body to lose that last 5 to 20 pounds. That is a very common one. And also sleep disruption, things where it can't fall asleep, wake up frequently, can't get up in the morning, waking up feeling, So those are some of the most common symptoms. There's a ton of other symptoms, but a lot of us don't really know that we are living in that state because it's just become our normal, and everybody else can we all kind of collude in accepting that that's normal. And just because something is common doesn't mean it's normal. So, needing that cup of caffeine to get ourselves going in the morning is common, but not normal. Suffering and struggling with PMS symptoms and I'm going to, shoot my husband or that feeling, or I can't handle anybody for a good chunk of the month. That's common, but not normal, and we don't have to live with those things. So it's very simple to assess this using proper testing, and working with a trained practitioner who knows what the right testing is and how to interpret that testing and share it with you so that you can understand, what happened, where am I at? And the funny thing is that often, people relate the concept of adrenal fatigue to stress. And so, some of us just have like an ongoing basic level of stress, and that might be like your phone going off because you have a message, and then like, oh, I got to run and get the kids, and like, oh, I have a deadline for da-da-da. And some people, have a bigger stress or a trauma or something bigger that they went through. And a lot of us think that just because the stress was in the past, that stress wouldn't be affecting us in the now. And that's a really big misconception, because what happens is that when I said that adrenal fatigue is a brain problem, this is what I meant. The adrenal glands respond to signals from the brain that are interpreting the world, how we are perceiving the world. And they are then sending a signal to that gland to say, this is how much hormone we need to deal with this situation or to normalize what's happening in the body. So it's doing its best effort to help us. The body is always trying to help us. And what can happen is that if we go through a period of really upregulated stress, like, going through a bad breakup or a loss of a loved one, or maybe moving to a whole new place, or things that are really beautiful, like getting married, having a kid, and starting a new business in the scope of a year, nothing wrong with that, but just being in go mode. Our brain can carve kind of a super highway. It's like the program, like the software versus the hardware of the computer. So it's very rare that the actual hardware is damaged, like the organs. It's very common that the software gets off track. And so it continues to send the signal that we had designed during that, like, I have to deal with this big stress after that stress is gone. And so our body can continue to function in that way. And that is not sustainable. And that's one of the ways that we develop adrenal fatigue. And there are beautiful, easy, elegant ways to reprogram that. So I think of it kind of like, you ever been on like a smartphone and there's like too many apps running in the background, and so the function starts to get a little glitchy. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute, let me see what's going on. It's kind of like, clicking and swiping up and just like clearing up some of that stuff that doesn't need to be running in the background, so that you can like, okay, now we're just functioning really clearly. So
yes, exactly. And I think a big piece from my journey in that is I met Brie years ago, and I thought, oh, this is probably a good idea. Like, I'm having some of these issues, but I told myself, well, but it's not that serious. I mean, I see other people around me that it's like, they're having huge trauma in their life, or they're dealing with something like you're saying. It feels like, well, that person, they would need it. But, I don't really have any big reason. The fact that I got sick and I would get like a cold and then it would turn into a cough. I want to celebrate this. This is because of Brie. So I had colds at least 3 times a year for my entire life, from little baby onwards. And they would turn into a cough that would last for at least a month. And I thought, well, that's normal for me and my body. And you would think it would be normal if that's all you knew from growing up. And then over the last year and a half, first of all, I've only gotten, I think, 1 cold. Maybe I might have gotten 1 more, but one that stands out in my mind, and no cough at all. There was nothing lasting about it. I just came right back to full vitality. And so I want to mention that, because the new normal is readjusting to like, oh, that's normal now. Now, if I got sick and it lasted a really long time, I'd think, wow, I'm off here. What else is going on?
Yes. I love that.
Yeah. So thank you. And that is the power of doing this kind of deep work and excavating these old patterns that you may not even realize that are an issue, or that are something you can change. I felt powerless, and I would go to like physicians and Western physicians, and they would just say, oh no, that's just your makeup. And so coming to Brie, she was the first person that said, no, it's not. That's just not true. And so I want to thank you for that. And I know that one of the pieces that started to turn things around for me was reading your Adrenal Fatigue ebook. And it's something I recommend to clients all the time. And so I'm happy that you're going to give it to everybody listening as a gift. And we have the link right below. So if this is something that you're curious about, and I really hope that everybody listening is curious about this, because it's just made such a huge difference for me. I can't say enough good things about it. You want to check out your Adrenal Fatigue book and start incorporating some of those practices, because you have some powerful practices in the book to get people started right away.
Exactly. Thank you. Yeah, I would love for everyone to check that out if you even think this might be impacting you, because what lights me up is knowing that you're out there doing what you do best more. So if it can be of support to anyone in any way, then I hope that you take a look at it. And Megan, I just want to, commend you for how much you showed up for yourself and just did the work of that you needed to do to kind of make those changes. And, there are big things that were small, those little steps, those little switches, and just doing them. And it's so wonderful to see how far you've come and how well you're doing. So
yeah, thank you. And I have to say that I did not follow even the protocols perfectly. I was far from perfect, and it's still, but I always want to be upfront about that, because often that's one of the things that stop me of thinking like, oh my gosh, if I don't do every single thing, then, in just the perfect way every single day, then it won't work. And I've been amazed with the results I got from being perfectly imperfect and just
exactly. Life's messy. That's how it is. Perfect. I love that. This stuff works anyway. It does. And it's doable. It's,
so doable.
Designed for busy people who have a lot going on.
Yes.
Awesome.
And for all of you that may be saying like, well, but I'm too busy, or I don't have time for this, I just encourage you to really check it out and rethink that, because my feeling was I felt too busy because I didn't have the energy to do what I wanted to do. And it all starts to shift to a much more spacious, expansive time. You're giving people the gift of more time.
Yeah.
Giving more energy.
Yeah. I think of it as expanding our bandwidth. How well we are is our bandwidth for how much we can run through our system, how much we can contain, how much we can do. And it's not about doing it faster or harder or more. It's just about doing it with more ease and getting more done with less effort. So that is what it feels like. That's what it felt like to me too. So
yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today. And I know for those of you watching all the way through and are with us through this whole arc, you'll see Brie is coming back to interview me next.
Really?
So we get to hang out together for longer, which I'm happy about. And so if you're watching all live, then just take a couple minutes to do what you need to do to be able to come back and settle in, hydrate yourself, move your body, and we'll see you in a minute.